Alright, who's here yet? Anybody? Nope. That's alright, we'll get here. Alright. Oh. Either way, good morning. Oh, hey, there we go. I see a one. I see a one. Good morning. Mama. No. Feather. Feather. Sorry. Can't read. The phone's like 3 feet away from me. Good morning. I'm over here in Detweiler Riverside Park here in Peoria. And this is a park that was a golf course. Hey, hey. This place was a golf course just a few short months ago, and they've turned this into a walking park, right? The idea is they've mowed down the grass to make a trail encompassing the entire park, and the rest of it's all just open prairie grasses. In some of the spots, they still have golf courses up. In fact, I'll give you a look-see. See if you can see behind me. It's hard with the sun, I know. But in fact, we'll take a quick run over here. Oh, good morning. Here we go. And we're up on one of the greens. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I dig this. This is one of the 18 greens that are left over here. And I don't know if they're starting to tear some of the sod stuff out or what. I haven't been up on this one yet, so this is new. Yeah, tearing some of this sod junk out a little bit at a time. They're just got like regular prairie grass. Not really at all. Yeah, it's like there's not houses super close. So I'm totally gonna set up the kit here for just a little bit. It's gonna be a shorter show today. I'm heading down to Texas today. So I've got to do this, and then I've got to teach a lesson this morning, and then I'll be back to get the car packed. We're taking a minivan that my folks were kind enough to provide, because they know our cars are old and they're gonna have a rough time getting down there. They could do it, but then we've got to use them again when we come back for our day-to-day, and so yeah, we'll pass on that, but just using the rental. But yeah, out here there's a ton of other holes and stuff, or greens I should say, and it's just so incredible. And just beyond those trees there is the river. Yeah, just out that way is the river. So it'd be neat to see if they sort of cleared some spots more so with the trees, and you could have a better view of the river from out here, and planted others. But it's not like they have any shortage of trees. There's a bunch out here. So yeah, I'm wanting to talk about drum setup a little bit, give you a quick view of how I go through the logistical part of going on a gig, right? Because that's a big part of it. You have to take some time if you're going to be a professional and figure out how much time it takes you to get set up properly and what you actually need. So my floor tom, right? My little 14 by 14, or is that? Yeah, it's about a 14 by 14 floor tom. Good morning, Andrew. Very to see you. So I'm gonna set my phone on that while I do the setup. And I'm gonna give you a quick look-see at what I've got going on here. Let's see if we can give you a better view. All right. And then once we do that, we'll play with some. So I'm gonna set it up facing away from you guys. So we've got the bass drum. This is your, in most modern music. Hey, I'm showing off my undies. That's a great way to start the stream. It's also good to have awareness of things like that. I'm a Haynes man, by the way, just saying. In most Western music, the bass drum and the snare drum are your two most important. Everything you do is really a conversation between your bass drum and your snare drum. So when you're getting set up, those are the two most important things to get set up, right? Shoot, I didn't even bring a hi-hat out here. I just said I wanted to get this going quick. Hi-hats are usually pretty important, but in this case, we're just going to get bass drum, snare drum, and cymbal. So we're going even more basic. There we go. We can tighten that down. Now you'll notice I have two beaters on here. This one's more of a fleece material, and it's a softer impact. This one is a felt head with a rubber casing on the back. Hey, Kid, is that you? Good morning. So totally different sounds from both of those beaters. Snare drum. Yes, I actually have this one in a bag because it wasn't cheap. All right. There's your snare drum, set, ready to go. Now, cymbal. Am I going to do this cymbal by itself? No. I want to pull out its counter. Right? I have a base to this just for these purposes. This is I think the brand is Kingston, and it's an old beat up kind of piece of trash, cheap cymbal. And it's got cracks in it, it's got a bunch of holes in it. A buddy of mine did that just to experiment and see what would happen. But what's cool about this is it's great for jazz music, and it makes you ride cymbal a lot more worthwhile to crash on. Usually ride cymbals, which is what I've got under my arm right now, are the thicker, heavier cymbal, and you tend to play a lot of the quick rhythmic patterns, the subdivisions that keep everybody together on this cymbal. This one's a medium thickness, medium weight, so it's not too bad, and you can crash it a little bit. If it's really thick, it just sounds like a big gong or a bell, like you say when you crash it. And that's not always what you want. Sometimes you want it to sound a little bit like a crashy sounding cymbal. And then you have more options, right? There's more stuff you can do. So, now that I've got this quick little drum set put together for you, I'll play on it a little bit. My favorite sticks. I'll bring you over by my side so you can see a little better. Here we go. Let's pick that up a hair. There we go. Is that Dom? Good morning. Just talking about drum setup and the logistics of getting to a gig and ready to go. So now I have my three pieces, my cymbal, my snare, and my bass drum all set. Right, so generally what I do to warm up is I work through rudiments, right? The basics of drumming. Good morning, Mama Bear. And Uncensored Christian, hey man, great to see you. Great video yesterday. Really enjoyed it. Morning, Dom. Hey, we got a bunch in here real quick. I just went through setting up the kit. I just put together a small setup: cymbal, bass drum, and snare drum. And wanted to let you see some of the ways that I warm up on this thing, the ways I get ready to start playing. Even if I'm not playing a gig, what I do to get myself set for future gigs, right? So, and I'm also, those of you that don't know, out here at, it says Detweiler Golf Course. It was a golf course. Now this is a walking park, right? They mowed a path for people to walk, a circuit about 3/4 mile around, and they left the center all prairie grasses. And it's beautiful out here. It's just amazing. You can still see where the 18 holes are at the greens all around this place, and I think they're going to remove the sod and let those just grow up with natural prairie grass as well. So one thing I'll do is check my tone. So I'm hitting just regular straight hits, and then what we call multiple bounce hits, right? Buzz hits, right? Right, so I can go. Might get a couple of different things going to warm myself up. One of my favorite rudiments is one called Kicked Out there. Is anybody still here? Yeah, it cut out for a minute, but somebody was trying to call me, and I don't know how to stop that when I'm doing phone live streams. Um, so, paradiddle goes like this. Right? Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Paradiddle. It's just a combination of sticking between your hands. Yes, it's an iPhone. Um, what'd you say? If so, there's do not disturb. Well, I thought I had it on this morning. Apparently, I was wrong. I have it set to be off at this time of day. And I did that the other day for live stream. I'll have to keep remembering to do that. Fortunately, it didn't kick the stream out. It just did it for a minute and went right back to you. So we'll just have a hiccup there later in the video once that's uploaded. But I can take that pattern, the right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, and I can put it around to different things. Like this, on the cymbal and the snare. And I can create a pattern out of it. And I speed it up, right? Or I can put it between my bass drum and my snare drum. Or I can put it between the bass and the cymbal. I can do other patterns that are similar. The double paradiddle and the paradiddle diddle are two of my favorites. They're both 6-note patterns. So the double paradiddle is just another right, left, right, right? And then a right, right at the end of it. And then a left, right, left, right, left, left. But put it all together. Like that. So add a bass drum. Let me get that right. I'm doing paradiddle diddle. Like that, or the cymbal. I could do the paradiddle diddle, which is a right left and then a right right and a left left. So I don't switch over to the left side to do it. I just throw a double left in at the end. Right? These are just some of the basics of drumming. There's 4 groups of rudiments: your rolls, your diddles, your flams, and your drags, right? And those 4 have been around since time forgot, since centuries ago. In fact, they were using them as far back, at least as I know, in the Civil War. And one of these days I'm going to find where I put it and get a link up for the 1864 Fife and Drum Manual of the United States Army. It's so cool because you actually see these rudiments written out. They were signals to tell the military where to go, to advance or to flank and things of that nature, or to wake them up in the morning or to get to chow. They had signals for all this stuff, and the band was supposed to do that. That was their whole gig, right? To organize things. So, and also to bring motivation when they're on marches going places, because you march for miles and miles, you're gonna want some motivation. That's gonna get old fast. You know, you're gonna get tired. But yeah, they would have to have people to help them be energized through that process, and that's what the band was for. Man, I am so excited. That's 15 people in this room. That's fantastic. I haven't had anything close to that. That's amazing, guys. Thank you so much for sharing this, getting it out there. I didn't know that they used the band to signal each other. Yeah. Yeah, it was for marching, but yeah, they would used to use drummer boys for signaling as well. I don't know how much of that they did during the Civil War. I think they still did some, but I want to say definitely during the Revolutionary War, they were used for signaling and things of that nature. They were, as I understand it, the original signal corps. Because if you think about it, there's a few different ways you can send messages. And they taught us this when I was in the signal corps in the Army. We were doing everything digital communication or phone communications at that point. But they're saying, you know, you have different options, and each one has its pros and cons. If you send a message, say, by some medium, be it written or I should say like over the wire, like they used to do Morse code to send over wire messages. Well, that could be intercepted, you know, if the enemy knows lines and knows where to get in there and figure out what the message is. if you're if you're trying to shout it across an open area or something like that, it could be intercepted. If you send a runner, if you send an individual to deliver the message, right, and deliver it specifically with what you say, that person has it tucked in their head. That's one of the most secure ways you can go, because that person could get intercepted, but if you train that person right, you know, they'll have a message that either they don't fully understand or that can't necessarily be interpreted just because they get that person to talk. And then even more secure than that would be having something that communicates long distances like a drum across those big battlefields. You can have different signals that tell the military units to do whatever you want them to do, predetermined signals. And if the other guys don't know that, they're going to have code breakers to figure that out. So that's an added step for them to be able to get your message in time. And it's all about time. It's all about speed at that point. Who can figure it out first, right? So little brief understanding of how the mentality would work to do that kind of stuff. And again, I'm not an aficionado on that, but I'd love to learn more about it. Just a little bit that I've gained has been amazing. So playing some patterns that are real important, like the jazz swing pattern. Usually I'd be using my hi-hat, the two cymbals that come together like this. I left that in the car for now. Let's see here. If you watched our show with the Aristocrats a couple nights ago, you would have seen plenty of that. You know, we did a lot of swinging. So a lot less snare, a lot less, even less bass drum in that kind of style. Whereas in like modern rock music and modern pop music, the bass and snare are the main focus in a lot of Western music. Jazz is kind of different. It's all about the ride cymbal. Everything is an accessory to the ride cymbal, as I would quote one of my favorite drummers, Billy Ward. But modern pop music, you have patterns like this. Different things like that. I do some funk stuff if I brought the hi-hat out. I didn't think to do that. But funk, imagine I've got the hi-hat, and this is the rim is my hi-hat. Like. So, different styles have their different little idiosyncrasies to them. Little unique things that you can definitely tell. That's funk, or that's jazz. That's obviously that. That's rock, man. That's just full out rock. Or you know, pop type things. They might have a little bit of electronic stuff mixed in there. Motown, and I'm thinking other kinds of pop. I'm thinking like Michael Jackson stuff. Like say Michael Jackson's music, for example, was undeniably his. When you hear a Jackson tune, you know that's Jackson stuff. Even before you hear the lyrics, you know like that's the groove, man. So recognizable. I think that's true with other artists out there. I'm trying to think of that are really distinctive. Like Rush was one of my favorite rock artists of all time. I've talked about plenty of times before. And when you hear a Rush song, you can kind of tell, like, if I'm playing something that even smacks of progressive rock, even a little bit, you know, somebody that knows me, like, that sounds like Rush, you know, and that's their whole idea. If they're not big into it, like, that's it. Yeah, YYZ. I mean, I lost count. There you go. There you go, Rush fans. Have fun with that. That's playing. That's playing YYZ, the intro, on a three-piece kit. Who stopped at the best part? D DIO for the win. Who is that? I missed it. Dio. You talking about Ronnie James? Gotcha, gotcha. Oh, little Zeppelin. You know, when I was in the Army, in the 3rd Infantry Division band, we did play The Ocean by Zepp quite a bit. And yeah, there's a little The Ocean, right? We had 2 Australian Army guys that were like huge fans of what we were doing, and so when I was in the 3rd Infantry Division band, our rehearsal space was it was a pool house that had been built for the previous regime leaders' children. You know who I speak of. Saddam Hussein, I guess, had constructed a pool house for his kids to use, is what I'd been told anyway. And this had been repurposed and turned into a band hall. Over time, we had local nationals construction company come in and build a building over the majority of the pool. But until that time, we would just have propped up big blue tarps or tarps taped together to create an enclosure, and we'd pump air conditioning through tubes and stuff into this enclosure, and we'd have power in there from generators. That would be our practice space. We literally did our whole operation in a refurbished pool, or a repurposed pool. So we reading comments. We would go in there and practice our stuff. A lot of times in the evenings, and these 2 Aussie Army guys would come by, and we always like, go get the lead out, right? Go to get the lead out. That's not the lead. This is the lead, right? That was horrible, but it was fun. No, we had a blast playing that. It was one of our favorite tunes. So, no, we enjoyed a little bit of Zeppelin. And one of the groundskeepers is going by here. I talked to him the other day, Tom. He might not by, I'm not sure. We had a bunch of fun doing different drumming, different stuff out there. Trying to think, yeah, and we actually made music in a pool. You know, hard to believe that actually happened, but some of the best memories I've ever had. And I loved having our Aussie fans coming out to our shows, to our rehearsals, and hearing us. That we loved having them. Now, one of the other things I mentioned today that I said I'd talk about is these guys, right? I'm going to get on from the drums to my favorite footwear for running, right? This is the Vibram 5-finger, right? It is the toe shoes. Yes, these I've been using these for, goodness, about 8 or 9 years now. And, excuse me, yes, it's certainly spring. The Vibram 5-finger, yeah. So let me explain that. It's a toe shoe, right? It's got toes in it. It's also what they call a minimalist shoe, right? Thank you, Feather. I appreciate that. So this is something I use for running. Yes, it can work with high arch. The idea behind it is that it's supposed to form more to your foot. There's only about 4 millimeters of rubber sole between your foot and the ground. And I try to run more in grassy areas rather than on concrete. I used to wear regular shoes, regular running shoes that were padded, all that kind of stuff. I went through a variety of different types, and I ended up having all kinds of ankle problems, foot problems, lower back issues. Never had any of those since I moved to these. Now, I will tell you, there has been controversy about minimalist shoes, and certain brands, including this, were tested by some group. And they said, well, you know, we find that style is actually not good for you. We're trying to test it scientifically. I guess what is it? Vibram was sued. Vibram company was sued by people. They chose to settle after that whole thing was brought out. But they still had their company. They're still selling shoes. They allowed people to um, receive money if they'd bought shoes. They would pay them back. But they're still in business. I mean, they've been making shoe soles for years, right? They have plenty of other stuff they do. But there's plenty of people that have been entirely satisfied with these shoes. They have not had problems with them. And there are some suspicions that perhaps the tests, not necessarily for nefarious reasons, but that the tests that were done by some independent group were not comprehensive enough to truly understand all the variables that go into making a good running shoe. I think that that's the case. Myself, like I said, I've not had problems with these. I love these shoes. They're great. That said, research minimalist running before you dig into them. A lot of people get them and probably don't, because it's not the same as running regularly. Usually when you run, you're going to impact your heel a lot of times first, right? You're going to go heel then toe, heel then toe. That's how your foot's going to hit the ground. You can't do that with these because you don't have this big thick padding in the heel anymore, right? So what you're supposed to be doing, it's kind of like what babies do when they tend to run. You're supposed to impact closer to the ball of the foot, right? It's more ball to heel, and heel just barely touches down. The more you smack the heel, right, the more you're going to send shockwaves up your back, up your legs, into your lower back, right? You're going to get more of the brunt of that in your lower back. So don't do that, right? Yeah, balls your feet like babies do when they start learning to run, right? It's the same deal. So just wanted to talk about my weird shoes. I love these things. I got a new pair a couple years ago. The last pair was getting kind of run down, and I was taking them out to do my physical fitness test at the Air Guard, and our orderly room clerk there in the headquarters office, she flat out told me that my feet stank, my shoes stank. You know, it was probably time to get new ones. Yeah, it was not a good situation. So it was time to let those go. I didn't know. I was so accustomed to it. I couldn't tell, and I'd washed them, but even after washing them, they still were not good after a couple of years of using. You can throw these in the washer. I would recommend not the dryer. And sometimes the rubber on the sole here can peel off after time, especially if you're washing them, and especially if you dry them. It will melt that stuff, and you'll ruin the shoes. Pinder, I agree. It's just so nice, you know. This is just as close to barefoot running as you can get, and still have some protection in case there's sharp things to damage your feet a little bit. But you got to think, people have been doing that for the majority of human history. And not to say that everything we've done for the majority of human history was a good thing, but I think there's worthwhile stuff, and we've kind of tried to alter our body shape and form when we run by the modern shoe, the modern running shoe. In some ways that can be good. In other ways, I think they might have jumped the gun on some designs, and I really like this one. I think they've made it better as time went on. But yeah, I like the Vibram 5-finger. I've been a fan, I think close to 10 years now since I first learned about it, if not more. But they're good shoes. They're good shoes. Yeah, I think a buddy of mine actually told me when my son was born, so it's been closer to, like, since I first learned about them, it's been almost 14 years. But I finally got myself a pair about 8 or 9 years ago. So good stuff, good stuff. They're just a little expensive sometimes. They're not as cheap as well, I don't know, what I consider expensive may not be to some of you. I might have different standards, 80, 90 sometimes, and I try to find them on clearance when they're only like 45, 50, you know. Some places will have clearance outlets like that. But at any rate, so I'm about up to a half an hour. I wanted to talk about one other thing. I can't remember, Captain, I can't remember your last name. Your screen name was Captain something, and you mentioned something the other night. I was watching back over the video to see how I played for the Aristocrats gig, and you mentioned, is that guy on the drums wearing Zeet Seat? Captain Cutler, that's what it was, exactly. Yeah, and he was mentioning, yeah, is that guy wearing Zeet Seat? For those of you who are like, what's a Zeet Seat? It's a Hebrew word that means to blossom forth. Zeet means blossom, and twice, blossom, really blossom, right? It's what a plant does if it's going to bear its fruit, the part that you can do something with, or that a bee can come and actually get nectar from and pollinate and create honey. It's something that you can do something with. The idea, so the Hebrew word for fruit, let's cover that real quick,
It's a three-letter word, peri, right? A pei, a resh, and a yod. These are pictures, right? Here we go, a little Hebrew lesson. Pei, resh, and yod. The pei is a picture of a mouth, right? The resh is a picture of the head of a man, right? And the yod is a hand that is closed because it is doing work, right? It is a closed fist in a sense, an arm that is busy doing something. It's a hand that's powerful because it's acting, right? Um, that's the pictographic concepts behind the letters of this word peri, right? And we still have this root peri in a lot of fruit words, like apricot, apple, right? Except you have a liquid change there. The L in apple used to be an R, peri, and how would I say, the yod sound, sometimes one of the consonantal sounds will drop off, moving from one language to another. Um, Grape, right? And you have the per consonantal root in there still. There's a lot of these fruit words that have the basis of the word peri kind of tucked away in them. Sometimes you have to look a little deeper to see it. The word fruit, right? The P and the F sound actually interchange between languages often. So, and then you've got an I-Y sort of sound in there because I's and Y's are sometimes interchangeable in that way as well. Sometimes. I'm not saying as an overall rule. But that's some of the basics of how certain words, ancient words like that, are still in our language all over the place, right? So peri, right? It's a picture of a mouth, a head, and a hand doing something, right? So it's whatever comes out of your mouth, whatever you do with your hands, your actions, your words, your thoughts that come from your head. All of those things are what come out of you. They're your produce, your fruit, right? That's what this concept means, right? That which comes forth from you. So it's also depicting the action of eating a piece of fruit, right? You take a piece of fruit, right, with your hand, and you bring it up to your mouth, which is on your head, right? So it's all encapsulated in that word. That's fascinating to me. That's why I love the Hebrew language, the ancient pictographic Hebrew language, understanding that in relationship to the biblical Hebrew that we might be familiar with today. That's a little quick lesson about fruit. So your fruit is important. What comes forth from you is important. And it's good to have reminders about what's coming forth from you. And as an example of having a reminder, the blossoming forth, the tzitzit, right, are these strings. I don't have them on right now because I'm wearing sweatpants and I can't attach them to the sweatpants. I don't have a method that's pretty handy for that yet. I'm gonna make one at some point. Some people have little tunics they'll put under their shirts that have little holes where they can connect them. But essentially, I missed what you said. I love my fruit and what comes from it. um, so, yes, milk would work, chest feeding milk, yes, it's what comes forth from a mother. It works in that sense as well. It's not just reduced to apples and grapes and oranges or tomatoes. You know, it's also, how would I say, it's a bigger concept. It's what comes forth from you. I'm not going to touch that one, Drunken Bear. I'm not even going to go there. So, you guys are cracking me up. The tzitzit traditionally were these tassels. You read in Numbers in the Bible, or the Hebrews would call it Bamidbar, right? The book of Numbers, or Bamidbar, chapter 15, verse 38, right? And in there it says that God commanded the Israelites to put tassels or fringes in the corners of their garments. Some versions will say fringes, some will say tassels in the corners of their garment, right? And put a strand of blue or a ribbon of blue throughout them. And every time they look at them, they will remember all the commandments or instructions that God gave for them, right? On how to live. And it's interesting, some of you might remember the story in the New Testament of Jesus walking through a mass of people, and there was a woman who had an issue or some sort of a disease where she was bleeding, she's hemorrhaging. Over a period of 12 years, she had this issue. And she thought to herself, if I can just touch the hem of his garment, right? The outskirts of his garment. The term, as you translate backward through the Greek into what it would have been in Hebrew, is rather similar. It's the same kind of term they would have used to refer to the tzitzit, right? She's talking about the fringes at the corners of his garment. If she could just touch his tzitzit, right? That's my suspicion, anyway, from what I can tell. That it's conjectural, but I would suggest that that might be the case, that that's what she's going for. Because yes, his power and authority is tied up in that, because it's God's power and authority. It's something that was granted to him through God. That was the idea behind that, anyway. And so she touches that, and suddenly she knows that within herself she's healed, right? And he knows, hey, who touched me? I felt the power drained from me just at that moment. So interesting little story, and I see reference to the tzitzit even in the New Testament. But why do I do it? I'm not Jewish, right? I don't think it's just a Jewish thing. As I read, I find that, is it something I do to earn my salvation? No, not at all. It's something, as I understand it from my Christian faith, I have that relationship that allows me forgiveness of those trespasses against the Creator of the universe, right? Choosing to go against his plan for me, which is the best. Choosing to tell my Heavenly Father, no, I know better than you, even though you built the entire universe. And so because I've received forgiveness, because he's a loving Father, because he wants me in his family, as a response to that, I choose to wear the tzitzit as a reminder all the time that he's given me loving instruction, right? That he has told me how I can live to my best. And I'll spend a lifetime understanding some of the more simple points of that, which is wonderful. I'm super excited about that. It's one of those go down, you could, I forget how that phrase goes. I had a phrase that encapsulated that, and it just went from my mind. It's so, there it comes. It's so shallow that a child could wade in it, and yet so deep that an elephant could drown in it, right? Could be fully immersed. I'm so glad that this is a wonderful way to start the day. I need a wonderful way too, because I'm gonna have a long day. I'm gonna be driving till like 2 or 3 in the morning, because we're going straight through. We're not stopping. We're gonna get there. We're gonna stop to get food or gas, but we're getting there. We're gonna get to my folks' house and get to bed and rest. But we want to spend as much time with our family as we can. I love seeing those folks. And I'm going to stream from down there too. I might have some other little video clips that come up throughout the day today that you might enjoy. I am thinking here, I'm going to get this stuff put away, but I wanted to talk just about a few of these little issues, and shoes, drumming, all that fun stuff. And yeah, I hope the rest of you have a great day. I'm going to cut it here. I got to go teach a lesson because it's getting to be about that time. And I love you, Bears. After being in a cult, religious traditions are not my cup of tea. I tend to think it's more about yourself and your mind rather than what religious objects you have. In large part, I would agree, Kikia. I don't think that the objects are the important thing. It's more about what purpose do they serve for me, right? And there's a traditional purpose behind that too. As I understand it, Jesus himself, or Yeshua as his mom would have called him, or people around him, he wore these as well. He wore a form of them. I wear them a little different than he probably did, because mine are made out of parachute cord, right? Because it's more durable and it lasts longer. But yeah, I agree with you, Kekia, completely. It's much more about the purpose of your actions and the objects that you might be using. And in my case, the purpose that those serve is to remind me who my Father is. It's almost like a God's wedding ring to me, right? Like, I wear a wedding ring. It's a human tradition, but it's a good one, right? A great teacher of ancient Hebrew. Some people might think he's kooky. Some people might think he's a wonderful guy. And I think he's definitely a wonderful guy, because he took personal time to mentor me. And I've never met him, right? I've only seen him from afar. His name is Bradford Scott. And he started a ministry called Wild Branch Ministries years ago. He's much more of the Messianic Hebrew roots community, in a sense. He was a pastor, regular old pastor back in the day. But he discovered this ancient Hebrew language. He discovered some of the roots of his faith, and it made him realize that some of these practices from even the Old Testament are still relevant today. Again, not stoning children for being disobedient, and it's much more complicated than that, right? Not putting women out of the camp on their cycle. That's not the point. That's not what that was all about. There's so many different things that are written there we wouldn't do anyway, because there's no standing temple today, so many of those things wouldn't apply to us. But whether you're a Hebrew, a Jew, or whether you're a person who's a Gentile but wants to live as part of them, take it easy, Dom. I hear you. I'm rambling a little bit here, but I'm getting to the end anyway. See you here tomorrow, man, for sure. I'll be back at it. I'll probably not be at 7:30 tomorrow. I'll probably be sleeping my behind off. So we might have a later day stream tomorrow. We will see. But at any rate, yeah, I think those things were meant for all the people that want to be part of the family of the God of Israel. So, well, I do like to stream early too. I just know that I'm going to get in at like 3 a.m., maybe later, and I suspect I won't wake up in time to do it. So I'll definitely get it up though, you know, and if you don't catch it live, you'll definitely catch the video afterward. I'll see what I can do. Maybe I'll get up and do a short stream if I can make myself wake up. We'll try, because I love kicking it with the Bears here. I love doing this. This is such a blast. Thanks so much for making this a wonderful thing over the last week. It's been amazing, and I can't wait to do more. So at any rate, to finish this up, because I got to go. Yeah, I find the tzitzit to be something in purpose rather than that's important, rather than the tzitzit themselves, right? It's not about the actual little thing. It's like, oh, tzitzit. No, that's not what I'm doing. That's the exact opposite, right? If the tzitzit could talk, they'd say, no, don't worship me. That's not the point, right? They'd say, the purpose of me is to point you back to the Creator, right? So if it can help me, because I could use any reminder I can get. I uzum all the time. What's uzum? Out of sight, out of mind. Uzum. I'm an ADD person, person that lives with ADD type symptoms and continues to learn how to overcome them. If something's not right in front of my face, I can very easily forget about it. So I've learned that about myself, and I try to take action against it. Tzitzit. Check it out. Numbers chapter 15, verse 38, if you want to learn more. Bradford Scott, Wild Branch Ministries, wildbranch.org. If you want to learn more about that guy, some people have some differences of opinion, controversial. I'm very grateful to him. I don't know if we agree on everything in life, but I don't think we have to. You know, he's taught me an awful lot, and I'm grateful for that. He's personally taken time to share with me resources that would help me grow in my understanding of the Bible and my relationship with the Creator. So I have nothing but gratefulness for that guy. He's a wonderful man, and I wish him the best. I hope one day we'll actually get to meet in person. It'd be really cool. Bears, I love you. You have a great day. Talk to you soon. Peace. I'm gonna do the Cosby face. I don't want to do a Cosby face. That's not a good thing.